Good evening, folks. Welcome back to my channel again. I'm Cemil Turan, and today I'm going to mainly discuss the strongest anabolic agent ever produced or ever designed. And most of you guys probably know the most anabolic agent as methylated drugs like methyl testosterone, methanol testosterone, or methyltrinolone or Trenbolone. But in fact, it is not the case. As you can see with trinolone, or also known as Trenbolone, it has 3 ene groups, which means that it has 3 double carbon bonds. And methyltrinolone only differs at 17th alpha position, which has methyl group at alpha orientation, and dimethyltrinolone is just methyltrinolone with additional methyl group at 7th position at alpha orientation. And as you can see, I took those these two screenshots from steroids subreddit in reddit.com, and as you can see, there are many different and many sophisticated drugs that drastically differ from in terms of selectivity, such as dimethyltrinolone, which has 10,000 over 10,000 anabolic reading, while having 10,000 androgenic reading. So it's not tissue selective whatsoever. But if you take a look at the methanol testosterone, you can see that it has up to 1600 anabolic reading, and while having just 100 to 220 androgenic reading. So selectivity differs quite a lot. And while methyltrinolone is mainly known as the strongest agent, it is not technically not that true or fair to call it as an oral Tren, because technically it's a completely different molecule. And as you know, Trenbolone generally known as having 500 to 500 anabolic androgenic reading, while methyltrinolone quite differs. And I also did a previous video about the 500 to 500 reading of Trenbolone, and actually it's not the case whatsoever. The 500 to 500 reading is not based on the compared to testosterone. It's based on the readings of the nandrolone instead of testosterone or methyl testosterone. And you might ask that why those drugs are not that popular? Why don't we use, or why they haven't been used in so-called golden era? And there are multiple reasons. Methyltrinolone was so toxic that it had to be dosed in micrograms, which means that less than a gram. And it was never marketed for medical use. And even in micrograms, it was not safe enough, and it was not the best tissue selective drug. Such as we back then, like drugs like oxandrolone, oxymethylone are quite old drugs, and they are quite reliable, and they are quite tissue selective compared to methyltrinolone. And methyltrinolone is generally used in scientific research to determine receptor binding affinity of androgens, and they take methyltrinolone as a face value in many assays. And here is the best part of this video. You now see the most powerful anabolic agent have ever designed or ever produced in this 1969 research. I highlighted the part that it says all of those drugs are administered orally by stomach catheter, which means that there are 4 agents they tested, and 2 of those agents were not C17 alpha alkylated, but they were still orally bioavailable, highly orally bioavailable, even such as if you take a look at the compound 1, which is dienolone, it still has higher myotropic effect compared to methyl testosterone, which is highly bioavailable. And the same thing goes for the third compound too. It is not 17 alpha alkylated, but still it is 93 times. It has 93 times higher myotropic effect, while having just only 8.7 times higher androgenic effect, and it is quite tissue selective compared to even second compound, which is a 17 alpha alkylated drug. But still, two oxo probably two oxo substitution increases bioavailability, and the strongest compound out of those four is fourth compound, which is 17 alpha methyl 17 beta hydroxy 2 oxo estrel 49 diene 3-one, which is essentially 2 oxo substituted methyl dienolone. And in this assays they found that 2 oxo methyl dienolone produced 550 times more myotropic effect compared to 17 alpha methyl testosterone, while being either somewhere between 12 to 25 times tissue, while having 12 to 25 times more tissue selectivity for skeletal muscles compared to prostate. And the skeletal structure of the 2-oxomethyldienolone is quite similar to oxandrol. In a sense, it's a hybrid drug between dienolone and oxandrolone. Oxandrolone is C17 alpha alkylated, but has 2 oxygen substitution which means that instead of having a carbon atom at the second position, it has oxygen atom. There are many similar drugs that we used in females for oral contraception or as oral contraceptives, such as Dienogest, which is essentially a 19-nor testosterone. But if you compare it to dienolone, you can see that the structure is quite almost identical to dienolone. Just only the only difference is at position C17 alpha orientation. And in other words, Dienogest is a dienolone derivative. So, long story short, 2-oxomethyldienolone is 550 times more myotropic than methyl testosterone, and still it is tissue selective, and it has 12 to 25 times tissue selectivity. Methyl testosterone has almost identical anabolic to androgenic reading, so the ratio is roughly the same compared to just plain old simple testosterone. And if we compare the two, we can see that the anabolic reading of 2-oxomethyldienolone is 55,000, while methyl Tren is somewhere between 12,000 to 30,000. So, long story short, we can say that 2-oxomethyldienolone is somewhere between 1.83 to 4.58 times stronger anabolic agent compared to methyl testosterone. So the next question you might ask is, then why it is not synthesized by underground labs or the so-called bathtub chemists? And the possible answer is just cost and time. The time you need to synthesize it, and time is the biggest determinant of the cost, because let's imagine why primobolan is the one of the most expensive compounds compared to testosterone. Primobolan is 5-alpha reduced, 1-methyl substituted, and has extra 1 ene between carbon 1 and 2, which means that you gotta spend more time to synthesize it. As pretty much the same thing goes for Trenbolone too. Trenbolone is technically a nandrolone with just extra two double carbons at position between positions 9 to 10 and 11 to 12. And this same thing goes for oxandrolone too, which is probably the most faked compound, at least most faked oral compound that we see. Most of the time they just fake it with winstrol, which is much easier to synthesize it, much easier to manufacture it. And oxandrolone is technically just two oxygens substituted as C7 alpha methylated plain old DHT, and that's it. The long story short, learned that the most powerful drug is not the methyltrinolone, and instead it is methyl 2-oxo-methyl dienolone. And thank you guys for watching, and let me know if you have any experience with methyltrenbolone or dimethyltrinolone. And till next time, take care and have a great day.